Welcome into episode 12 as we go one-on-one. I'm Jeff Dantzler, the man across the way, one of my favorites of all time, the great Zac Kristofak, who is joining us from Rosemary Beach, Florida. Zac, how in the world are you, my friend? Obviously, baseball is ground to a halt, and I know you're missing it. How are you staying busy? What's going on in the world of Zac Kristofak?
Yeah, man, I've been good. I've definitely been missing baseball a lot, just as the whole baseball world is. But I think this has also been a good time to take a step away from everything. Spend some more time with your family, with your friends than you usually get to. Especially right now because I'd be in the middle of a very demanding season, and so it's kind of nice to get away from everything. But at the same time, everybody wants to play baseball. Everybody's missing baseball, so. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, but yeah. I mean, we definitely miss it, man.
Well, Zac, let's talk about when bad things happen. There are some good things that can come out of that, and that includes perspective, and that certainly includes savoring your opportunities and the things that we miss.
Absolutely, and I think the word perspective just kind of sums everything up, pretty well. It's always how you view everything. Obviously, with baseball being gone right now, you can just be not doing anything, or you can actually be preparing like there's still going to be a season. And so I've still been training. I've still been doing all my throwing, all of that. And whenever we get called back, you just got to be ready. You got to be the same person that you were in spring training when you left. And so they still have like a good image of you in your mind.
Zac, with your teammates now in the minors, and I got to think especially going back to your 3 remarkable years at Georgia, yes, the games are great. The wins are incredible. The losses hurt. But I think what we're all missing, however we're a part of the game, is that camaraderie and that time together. And I just think for you guys, whether it's playing cards on the bus or video games when you get to the hotel, just being around your teammates, has that been the hardest part for you to miss and the toughest thing to be away from?
Absolutely, and I would say the number one thing that I miss about being at Georgia was just the clubhouse, being with everybody. The camaraderie of a baseball team is what you always are going to remember. If you have a good outing, if you have a big win, you're always going to remember that. But what I'm going to remember is always hanging out in the clubhouse, cracking up jokes with everybody. Bus rides, plane rides. We got to do like just so much cool stuff when I was a member of the team at Georgia, and that's definitely what I'd say I'd miss the most.
Zac, your career was spectacular. You're in rarefied air in terms of having double-digit wins and double-digit saves over the likes of Will Startup and Chris Carpenter, 12-3 with 12 saves. And there is, of course, the famous hit list there. When you add up those wins and saves, thrice beating Tech in Tennessee, beating Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Texas A&M, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Georgia Southern, all the big rivals, all the big powers. And to me, what that always spoke to was your toughness and your grit and your ability to rise to the occasion on the biggest of stages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'd say a lot of that definitely I can just point to my team. We had a lot of kids on our team that just had grit, had toughness, and you kind of feed off of that when you're in the game. I can remember last year Tony probably had the best outing of his career, I would say, against Vanderbilt when he went 7 strong. And it was just a tough outing that he grinded through. He was at like 115 pitches. And he just kept grinding inning by inning. And I threw the last 2 innings of that game, and I just kind of like fed off of that, But yeah, I've always just loved to have the ball in my hand in the big situation when the heat's the hottest. And I've just always felt like I've like thrived off that. I kind of like the pressure like that.
Well, you mentioned Tony Losi, and I know you guys are really tight. You were, 2 of the great competitors we've ever had. And obviously from our view up in the press box, what was always so interesting is you were one of the shorter guys on the team. Tony's one of the bigger guys on the team. But everybody always said, that'd be the last two guys on the team that I'd want to fight. But and then I think back to one of our former assistants, Pete Hughes, who's now the coach at Kansas State. Pete and I are old sports junkies, and we were talking about the great middleweight fight between Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns. He said, "Oh yeah, I showed that to two guys on the team." I go, "Let me guess." He goes, "You got it, Kristofak and Losey."
His first week on campus, he showed me that video, and he's like, "This is the greatest boxing match of all time, and you need to watch it." And I watched it, and these guys were just throwing hands for the whole time that they were in the ring. They weren't in the ring for that long. I think the fight was only a few rounds, but man, they just didn't quit. And you rarely see a fight like that where guys are throwing punches like at that with that like demeanor, you know, and they're just tired as heck, and they're just still going at it because they wanted to win. Yeah, I remember that.
Well, Zac, obviously getting drafted last year, 14th rounder. So proud of you there, and I know just playing baseball has been the dream, and now not being able to do it. How are you keeping yourself straight?
Yeah, well, I'd say just the dream, like just, you know, you always have an end goal in mind, and I still have the same end goal. I know that, you know, guys like Tony, you know, other guys that are also drafted this past year, they still have that, and it's very tough right now. It's hard to stay motivated, but you got to kind of think about like, okay, am I doing more than everybody else is doing right now? Am I working out properly? Am I throwing properly when all my other teammates are, you know, sitting on the couch like watching Netflix or something? So you just try to separate yourself and be tough in that manner. And you know, whenever we get back and whenever we reconvene, you know, you want to be a guy that stands out, and you want to be a guy that's like, okay, during this whole quarantine time, I wasn't just, you know, sitting on my rear at home. I was actually working. I was doing stuff. So that's just kind of my hope, is that all that pays off when we do come back, and that it's like I never left spring training, you know?
Zac, during these tough times, one of the things I've been saying a lot of is, in the darkness, light shine the brightest. And you have gone through the toughest of times, just unimaginable, unspeakable. And you were so young when all this happened. How in the world did you fight through that? And, you know, what has kept you going through all these hard times? And I guess, you know, when anybody's dealing with tough times, you know, nobody can top what you went through.
Yeah, well, I definitely say that the number one thing in my life that always just gets me out of bed every morning is my faith. That was something that my mother instilled in me at a very young age, and something that I still take very seriously to this day. Another thing is just community. I had so many people surround me in such a hard time, and it would have been very easy for me to go the other way in that situation. And, you know, I kind of thank God every day that I had people that were in my corner that wouldn't let me go that way. And last but not least, I just say, like, the dream. Like, I think the one thing that my mom would want me to do is to follow my dreams. And, you know, my dream ever since I was a kid was to play, you know, Major League Baseball. And so that's just something that, you know, some days you wake up and you don't want to do it, and you try to make all the excuses, and you can play, you know, victim and all that, but you just got to be like tougher than that. You can't do that. And you don't fight all that way to just quit. You know, that's kind of like my outlook on it. And so it's just, you just got to keep fighting, man. You just got to keep fighting.
So for you growing up, you talk about the dream of playing Major League Baseball. I had that dream too. I was a light-hitting, weak-armed Little League second baseman, so I knew that wasn't coming. For the few that do have the ability and the drive, like you do, to make those dreams come true, savoring these opportunities so big. So for you growing up, did you love Georgia? Was there a major league team? What was your biggest love, or was it just the game in general?
Well, I definitely loved baseball growing up, just in general. But what really did it for me was Chipper Jones.
Okay.
And to this day, I still have 10 Chipper Jones baseball cards that I have in my backpack that I take to the field every day when I go to the field. I've just always had him in there and I haven't taken him out. But he was just kind of larger than life for me. I tried to imitate his swing. I tried to imitate everything that he did. And, you know, growing up in Atlanta as such a baseball hotbed, I got to watch a lot of really good Braves teams, and we would go to a lot of games. And that just kind of did it for me. I just thought, like, at 5 years old, I was like, this is awesome. You know, this is my dream. And I definitely say that he, above a lot of other people, had that influence on me.
Zac, last year you won the university's Inspiration Award. Well-deserved, certainly unanimous. What did that mean to you?
Man, that was pretty cool. I definitely say that was the biggest honor that I ever received at the University of Georgia, just because that's so much more than baseball. For me to just for people to recognize me as being a light, you know, in the community, and for overcoming, you know, some of the things I've overcome in my life. Man, it was truly an honor. It was very humbling, and you know, for me, that's bigger than, you know, anything that baseball could ever give me. It's just being inspiring people and being able to help people through hard times as I've been through.
Zac, being on campus, part of the last two teams we had that were so great with what Kirby's done in football, you know, these last three seasons we've had to be a really special time, you know, to be 19, 20 years old, to be a Bulldog, you know, baseball player, football player, whatever it may be.
Yeah, man. I mean, that was the greatest 3 years of my life, without a doubt. It was really cool to see what the football team did over the past 2 years. You know, we came so close back in my sophomore year, and especially on the diamond, man. That was the first time we've been to the postseason in 10 years. I think both years got cut short. I think that we had the talent to go much farther, but you know just as well as I do, JD. That's just the way baseball goes sometimes. But yeah, that was without a doubt the best time of my life.
What are some of your favorite memories, Zac, from your playing days? Because that we certainly had some big wins with you on the mound with great crowds at Foley Field.
Yeah, I would say my favorite was closing out the game my sophomore year against Georgia Tech at SunTrust. And number two was tagging up for the one hitter with Tony Losi against Vanderbilt on Sunday this past year.
And that Vanderbilt team was ranked number one in the country at the time.
They were mean, man. They could hit, they could pitch, they could do it all, and we just played the best baseball we could, man.
Well, it was so fun to see, and you mentioned the game at SunTrust as well, where George had the overwhelming crowd support there. And it is, to go Obi-Wan Kenobi here for a second, there's a symbiotic relationship between the team and the crowd, and for any sport, and it's so special at Georgia where we got the greatest fans in the world. What's that like when the team's going great and the crowd's feeding off of you, and the crowd's going crazy and they're feeding off of you guys? You guys are just going off of one another, and the energy is just incredible.
It's nuts, man. I mean, there is definitely a huge difference of playing, you know, a Tuesday game, the second week of the season with 100 fans in the crowd. Coach Daly used to call it an AT&T crowd. It's just the people that you had in your phone, your parents, your girlfriends, and your friends. But yeah, those weekend SEC games, you know, when we got to play in SunTrust, big league stadiums, and even on the road, man. Yeah, definitely when you have some type of crowd, your adrenaline, you know, just goes through the roof. What I always liked was going into a hostile environment on the road. Like J.J. Redick would always say, he didn't like pumping up the crowd more than he liked shutting out the opposing crowd when he was on the road, when he was playing at Duke. And I always loved that. If you go into because there's so many stadiums in the SEC that are just packed on the weekends, and if you get to go in there and, you know, just shut them down, it's a pretty stinking good feeling.
And even going back to your freshman year, when we fought to make it to the SEC tournament, one of your first ever wins came in Knoxville against Tennessee as we won that series, and our backs were against the wall. So that was really the first moment that you shined on that big stage.
Yeah, I specifically remember that. That was the longest in my career that I ever pitched in a game. And it was just a team effort. You know, we fought back also offensively. I don't want to take all the credit there. But yeah, it was just a team win, and we fought back, and then we came back on Sunday after losing on Friday, and we won the series. And that was our first SEC series win of that year. And so I think that is what maybe sped us up into, you know, contending for a spot in the SEC tournament, especially after a very slow start. And even at the end of the season, obviously the season didn't end the way that we wanted it to, but we won our last 3 SEC series, and then we go into 2018 and we win our first 2 or 3 SEC series. So we won 6 straight conference series, and that just kind of started a snowball effect, and we started getting more confidence, and everything just kind of started rolling for us.
Well, it certainly did, and you were a part of so many special moments for the University of Georgia. And Zac, you know, kind of mentioning the hit list, I can remember when it first came to mind for me, when you had between wins and saves, when you had toppled Tennessee, Auburn, and Tech, and I say, oh, that was Kirby's first year. And I said, man, you know, hopefully Kirby can get that kind of hit list this coming fall. And then we have this incredible football season that rolls into the baseball season there. It really was an amazing time. And I mean, Kirby's such a huge baseball fan, and the way you guys just rekindled the passion in the program. I think that's something that, you know, all Georgia people, especially those of us that have been close to the baseball program, are going to be forever grateful for. And I know it had to be special for you in 2018 when you got to see the guys from, say, that 2008 College World Series team come in, and to think like, hey, we're doing something special. We're carving our own niche here in the history of this program.
Absolutely. And kind of like I said earlier, that was just a very special time in Georgia sports. And I just hope that team in 2018 just starts a long legacy of just great Georgia baseball teams. It's a great program. The program when I was coming in had some very tough years before then, but we always talked about getting back to kind of the early 2000s when it was just a thriving time for the program. And it was also kind of crazy to see, you know, just the fan base just kind of grow from when I was there. I remember Gordon Beckham, he came to speak at our banquet our freshman year. And before that, he came out to our practice, and he straight up said, he's like, you guys start winning, this town's going to come out, and they're going to support you. And when we started doing that, they did, and that was really special, and that was really fun.
Zac, for you, when you got to come to Georgia and be a part of the Bulldog family, I'm sure you could feel how many people just embraced you. You just talk about how special that is. Yeah,
and there are so many people that helped me out throughout my time at Georgia, more than I can name. I always feel like I'm going to be in debt to the coaching staff at Georgia for developing me as a player, but you know, the staff just also had so many incredible people, and so many people on kind of underneath everything that don't get enough credit, I feel like, such as like Sean Bolin, you know, Coach Gearhart, all those guys. They put in so much to the program, and they're such good people. And then it was also just like the camaraderie of everybody. You know, I have multiple of my best friends on on those teams that are going to be in my wedding. I'm just going to be friends with them for the rest of my life. I'm down here with Mason Clutch Meadows, Justin Glover's up the street in Water Sound. Yeah, so it's just people that you meet, you know, kind of during that time, especially when you play a sport. They're going to be there with you for the rest of the way.
Well, you guys were an incredible group of young men. I am so proud of all of you. And, of course, you're at the top of the list. Zac, continued success, my friend. And I appreciate you taking the time from being out sunbathing and swimming there in the in beautiful Rosemary Beach. I can't thank you enough. Can't tell you how proud I am of you. I love you, my friend. Thank you, Zac.
Man, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you for having me.
All right, that is the great Zac Kristofak. Bob Miller, our A-plus producer. Z-Man sitting in the hot seat going one-on-one with this guy right here, Jeff Dantzler on Bulldog Illustrated.